Hi, welcome to Creating Art with Jenny. Today I'm going to share with you how I paint pears in watercolor. Now pears are some of the most fun things to be able to paint because they are so different. And so no pre-drawing really is required, and as you can see the colors change. So I usually, I bought this at the farmer's market. Today I kind of get a deal when they're beat up, and I just tell them I'm going to paint them anyway. And so they're like, oh, well, just take them. So pears, though, if you just let them sit on your counter for a few days, they really do continue to change and evolve. So there is not really, no one's going to know what you painted, what your pear looked like when you painted it. And there's a lot of creativity with it. So I'm going to do some wet on wet, which is the best way to kind of get this started. And they're just going to be 3, and I'm going to put them right here in the center of my card. So as I begin, I'm going to start using yellow, some of my Hansa medium yellow, and I'm going to start with my center one because I do want it to be kind of right here. And as I look at my pear, I notice that, like I said, there's not a right or wrong way to do it, and they're always a little bit, obviously thinner on top than at the bottom, and they come out and around, and you can always continue to change the shape of your pear. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a real quick one down here and bring it up and maybe make it a little fatter on this side. And then I'm going to go ahead and do another one over here. So I like to do multiples at a time because then they really do, they're just easier to kind of work together. So this one might be leaning, it might be more fat over on this side. And like I said, they're going to change a little bit, so as they continue to go. And they are always, fatter at the bottom. That one was a little bit too dull. And then I am going to bring in my brown one that was to the side. I saw that today, and I was like, oh, those are cute. I like the little ones. So might just have to see if I can fit them in here. So as he's coming down, he's kind of leaning this direction, so I'll make him come down a little bit further. I don't know why I call him anyway. Alright, so I've got my base down, and now comes the fun of being able to go in and just watch your colors mix and flow as you add them together. So I am going to put some green into my yellow over here, adding some on this side and a little bit over here on this one. I don't always necessarily put the same colors in each one, but sometimes I like to make them a little bit the same. So I'm going to add a little bit more green over on this top one on this side, and also come in and flow some red over here. So the wet on wet really does help it to make it look more natural when you're adding some things in. And obviously I had some bruising and some darker spots on mine. So I'm going to add these in and kind of just let that flow coming in. And I have not forgotten about my other one. I do want to kind of bring this and just kind of let it sit here for a second. So as it starts to dry a little bit, I might want to come in and just add a little bit more because I don't want it to completely dry. And as I did that, I probably brought a little bit of red over here as well, which is fine. This is the fun part of it. You really can just start playing around with what do I want my pears to look like. And so, not forgetting my pear over here, I'm going to add in a little bit burnt umber and coming in on the top. And I have like a little ledge right here that shows that, it's fuller down here, so I'm going to make sure I bring that in. And I'll let that dry. And then I'm also going to try to pick up a little bit so it's a little bit more white over here. Let that dry for a second. So as I go in, I do want my colors to have a little bit more dark intensity to them, as my red's pretty intense, which is nice. And I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber, make these a little bit darker, especially down on the bottom, because there is a shadow being cast down here. So just kind of letting that come down, and maybe bring a dot right up here, and then come in and do the same over on this one. Shadows are important to suggest depth. You know, they give your piece depth. So kind of watch that as it dries a little bit. Alright, so for my for little eggplant pear on the right, I am going to come in and add some deeper purple to my brown to show that it's, you know, it's got depth, and there's some undertones to here that's showing that it's round. And I'm going to just let that dry for a second. And I might come in, I kind of like that, so I might come in and do that over here on the bottom as well. This one ended up being fatter than I wanted it to be, but that's okay. That's, you know, loose painting with watercolor, and when it all dries, it does end up being super fun and more realistic and lively. Okay, so I am going to let that dry, and I'll come back and show you how I add a little bit more details. So the pears are dry, and I'm going to go back and add some of the rough just texture, and I'm using a flat head little brush that I like to do, and it's going to be fairly dry, so it's not going to be super wet. It's more like adding texture. So as I come in, I just want to kind of think about, you know, what is it going to look like, and I kind of like using this brush just because it does add some nice little textures that you can put in here. And I don't need a lot, you just need a little to kind of draw your eye to it and think about where you want it, and kind of maybe vary it a little. Like I said, they were a little bit beat up. Just kind of add some interest to your pears, some more interest, maybe because this is a downside, it kind of come in. Sometimes it's super faint, super light, and you know, they have those little fun dots on them. I don't know what they get them from, but you know, sometimes I have to just make sure you don't like overdo it. But remember, the more weathered your pears are, the more you might have of these. So that just kind of adds some a little bit more of a realistic touch, and maybe some over here. All right, so I'll leave that, and then I'm going to come in and kind of work on my stems. So using a smaller brush for that as well, and maybe so not super wet, but pears are super fun too. Their stems are all over the place, so whatever you want it to look like is good to go. And there's not one, you know, that is the same, at least for pears. I've never seen one. So, and you can make them darker or lighter, shorter. This one is more stumpy over here, so I am gonna kind of make it stumpier and maybe make it darker right here. And then kind of come in, I'm going to kind of cut in and use my paintbrush. I'm also making some of these, or I put some of this weathering on my pear, make it a little bit darker so it draws your eyes into for reality. So there you go. Okay, I gotta stop. I'm having fun doing this, and there's a point though that you just gotta stop doing it. Okay, so the pears stems are done. And if you wanted to, you could even come in, if you really wanted to show some really dark, you could come in and add a black more if you wanted to kind of make it really look like it's got some depth on that. So I'm also going to come in, I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to come in and add some shadows, just a few on the stem, and then I'm going to ground my bottom of my pears. So adding shadows, I'm using a dark purple. I love purple for shadows. I just think it's fun. And so as I come in, I'm thinking to, I have these under a lamp right now, so it's going to be a little bit, they are going to be connected. I do like to kind of connect them when I have a group of 3. And this one is because they are close to each other. And I'm going to make the shadows kind of more coming this way. And I'll come back in. Still a little wet. I might lose my stem in that, but that's okay. So, alright, and I'm going to switch paintbrushes real quick. Just trying to make sure I've got a thinner. Sometimes my thick paintbrush is harder to use for the points that I need, and I do want that kind of rounded back there. Okay, so there we go. Try to make the flow, make it even. And there are my shadows. So also I said I was going to come up and do something with my stem, so I'm using a pretty, I'm not going to use purple on that. I'm really just going to use a tint gray or black. And as I come in, just kind of shadow that down. So it's kind of going off, and that one is not, but I could maybe go back and add a little bit so you can kind of see the stem a little bit more. Okay, so there you have it. That's my watercolor of my pears. Hopefully that this has inspired you to go out and buy some pears at the farmer's market or the grocery store, wherever you are, and paint your own. Thank you for watching.